Hi guys, it's Leo with One Happy Widow, and as you can see, we're doing something a little different today. I have a guest speaker, I have a guest interviewee on the show today. So we're going to be talking to Jen Zwinck. She is the founder and creator of Widow 180, which is a podcast and a blog. And so I'm going to introduce her in just a moment, but I just wanted to let you know this is kind of like we're doing something new today, and adding a little spice to the show, and getting a different perspective on a topic that we've been talking about, because I'm doing a series right now on dating as a widow or a widower. And so I kind of wanted to get a different perspective from other people so that we could see how other people are handling those things. And so I felt like Jen was the perfect person to bring on and talk about that. So I'm going to go ahead and ask her a few questions, and we'll introduce her. And then make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end, because we have a special surprise that we're going to offer to our viewers today. And I'm going to let Jen talk about that at the end. So just make sure you tune in for that. Okay. All right. So Jen, welcome. Thank you so much for being our guest today. I'm so excited to have you.
Leo, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I am too. Okay. All right. So like I said, the purpose of the interview is to, as you guys know, if you've watched my YouTube videos, you know that I am remarried, even though I still consider myself a widow. And so I've already been through all of that dating stuff. And Jen actually is also a remarried widow. And so she might have some experiences too that she might want to share about that. And also she is a fellow person who has taken it upon herself to share her experiences of the grieving, being a widow, raising children, moving forward, making purpose, finding her purpose in her new life, finding happiness and joy in her new life. And she wants to share that with others like I do. She just uses a different media to do that. So we're going to hear from her. I'm going to ask her a few questions. I'm going to let her take it away.
Okay.
So first of all, can you share with us a little bit of the story about how you became a widow?
Okay. Well, my story starts it's almost 10 years for me. So it's been a while. Which I can't believe it's been 10 years already. But my husband at the time, Brent, he was invited to a bachelor party. His really good friend was getting married, and my husband was a man that never went out. He was a total homebody, like wanted to be home, did not want to go out that night anyway. He told me, he said, I'm going to go, it's my really good friend. I feel like I need to be there. So we live right outside of New Orleans, and this bachelor party was in the French Quarter. And so he went to the bachelor party. I was actually on the phone with him the whole time that he was driving there. So it was a good 35 minutes. We had a really nice conversation before he even went to the party. So he gets down there. I told him, I said, text me as soon as you get back to the hotel room. Just let me know that you're okay. So he went to the party. I think he texted me at the party, no big deal. Anyway, it's gets to be 5:00 in the morning. I was asleep. We had our little girl was Claire was 2 at the time. And so we were all cuddled up in the bed together, and he never did text me. 5:00, I woke up. I was looking for the text. Didn't see a text. I said, okay, he's probably just drinking a lot and just fell asleep, So then the next day is Sunday, because the party was Saturday night. So Sunday, the Saints were playing. He was supposed to be coming home at noon. The game was starting. So he was going to get up, have breakfast with the guys, and then come home. So I don't know, 9:30 in the morning, still no text, nothing. I tried to call him, nothing. 11 o'clock comes around. He's still not home. The game is about to start. He's still not home.
So and then I was something was okay, really up by now.
What is happening? That's when I really was like, okay, I got that just sinking feeling in my chest. So I called his friend and I said, have you seen him this morning? He said, no, the last time I saw him was 4:30 in the morning. He left the bar. They were still all out. Wow. And so I said, could you please go to the hotel and just see if you can track him down? So he goes over to the hotel. he wasn't there, obviously, but his friend called me and he was like, Jen, I think you need to come down here, have your parents watch the baby while, just come down here. And I was just like, what is happening? What is happening? This is like, I don't know, 2:00 in the afternoon by this point. And so I had my parents come. I told them what was going on. I was like, he's missing, So I went downtown. Police were there. We were at the hotel. I had pictures and I was just like, this is what he looks like. So we were trying to retrace some steps and go back. They were talking to the bar, the bouncers and stuff like that. So that was it. That was the last he was seen was 4:30 when he left the bar. So we were trying to track his phone and it was a very difficult process, but by this time it's like, I don't know, 8:00 at night, 8:00. They were walking around the French Quarter looking for him. And then we tracked his phone to a junkyard that was probably 3 miles from the French Quarter. Wow. And so we hop in the car, we tell the police, we track the phone, and we go over to the junk. It's my dad, a couple of the guys from the party, and we go over to this junkyard. And I'm telling you, it was like barbed wire fence. There's like Rottweilers and like pit bulls like barking underneath the fence. Like it's a giant junkyard. Giant.
Yeah, it's like one of those movie things. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's totally dark. It's like it's pitch black. So we had the police out there and like we couldn't get in because it's Sunday night. They couldn't get in touch with the owner, so we couldn't get into it. So then they call the fire department. And so the fire department comes out with their trucks and they put the ladders up, and then they were climbing up to the top and they had spotlights. So they were shining the spotlights like down into the junkyard to see what they could see. It was needle in a haystack. Right. And so they were telling me, they were like, okay, Jen, we're going to shut off all the lights. We need you to call the phone and we're going to see if we can see if it lights up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that a few times. I don't know. We must've been out there for an hour, maybe. I don't know. By this time it's like, it's like 10:30 at night. And so they told me, they had 2 detectives that walked up to me and they were like, we need you to go home and get some rest. And, it was like a line out of a movie. Right. It was, we need you to go home and get some rest and just let us do our job. That's what the one guy told me. It was a total line from like, NCIS or whatever.
God.
But I was like, did he just say that to me?
Right. Like, I mean, it sounds like you're narrating one of those TV shows or some crime movie or something.
I'm like, I don't have my husband.
Right. Just go home. Don't worry about it. Just don't go home. Yeah. We'll update you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go home and get some rest. I'm like, really? So we left. It was my dad drove me back to their house and Claire was there with my mom. And, so I go and crawl in the bed with her. It's like whatever time it was, 1:00 in the morning. Right. And of course I couldn't sleep. I'm just sitting there like staring at the wall. And I was having like a panic attack, of course. And I'm just like, where are you? Where are you? I need a sign. Give me a sign. Tell me that you're okay. I need to know that you're okay. And I was going on like rambling. I was just like, I was out of my mind. Right.
Oh yeah.
And so in this room that we were sleeping in my parents' house, there was a nightlight for Claire. And over on the wall, I can picture it right now, but it was like, it cast a shadow of, I don't know what it was, but the nightlight cast a shadow onto the wall and it was Brent's like silhouette. Okay. Like full size, like silhouette on the wall. And I was like, I stared at it and I was like, nope. I said, nope, I don't want that sign. Yeah. That's not it. And I looked away and I was like, no, I said, that's not That's not a good sign.
Right.
I want a different sign. Give me a sign. I need a sign. I need you to tell me that you're okay.
Right.
And I opened my eyes and I looked back over there and I was like, oh my God, like, this is it. This is it. And then like, I knew it was like in the pit of my stomach. I'm just like, I didn't know what had happened, but I just knew he was gone, Right. So then it was the next day, we got a phone call from the coroner's office, and then we had to go and identify. It wasn't identified. They wouldn't let me see him. We went down to the coroner's office and we sat at this big, long, like, office desk table. And he had this picture that was face down, but I could see it. Like, I could see when I walked in the room, I saw the picture and it was the back of the picture, but I could still see that it was him. Right. And so he said something to me, like, I sat down and he said something like, we have every reason to believe that this is your husband. And then he turned it over and he slid it across the table so I could see it. And then I was like, no. I said, that's, I don't believe you.
Right. Right.
Like,
in your mind, you're like, well, it could be, but it could be anybody, right? Yes. Like, there's probably lots of guys who look like that. Right.
And I flat out told the guy, I'm like, I want to see him. Like, I want to see him. And he said, no, like, he wouldn't let me. Wow. So what had happened was he had left the bar by himself because he was tired and he had been drinking and he wanted to go home. He was not a party guy. He was not a go out kind of guy. 4:00 in the morning, he was tired. He left the bar by himself and 2 guys followed him, and he turned left instead of turning right. If he had gone right, the hotel was like right there. Oh, but he turned left, and it was a dark side of the street, and they robbed him, and they took his phone and they took his wallet, and he pretty much died right there on the sidewalk. So he had no identification. They didn't. Somebody that was walking home found him, called the hospital, and they, he had no identification, so they didn't know how to get in touch with me or who he was or anything. Right. So it took a little while. It was like the next day, but so it was a total nightmare.
Yeah. I can't. I mean, at that point, you're in shock, and you've instantly, like, I've talked about these stages of grief and the difference in how the grieving starts, between people. When with mine, it was an anticipatory grief. So we kind of knew and we were preparing. And so my grief started slowly and gradually over months. Yours is like a total opposite type of, when your grief started, it was right at that moment. You went from not knowing anything, not expecting anything, to full blown grief and loss like that. And so I'm sure your brain probably broke. I mean, your whole, I can't imagine. I mean, I can try, but like the difference, you know what I mean, between how your grief started and how my grief started is like polar opposites. And I can't even imagine how that would go. And so,
the only way I can describe it is like, it's like a feeling of, it's kind of like I disappeared. I feel like I disappeared into my body. Like my being, my soul, my everything just shrunk down into this tiny little part of myself that was like this big, and it was inside of me somewhere. Mm-hmm. And the rest of me was just like completely numb and walking around like a zombie. And I had no idea like how I was functioning, how I was doing anything.
Right. And
it's I knew, yeah.
Is that what it felt like for you? Well, I experienced that at diagnosis. So it was a similar kind of a shock, when the doctor says, that you have cancer, and the first thing that he asked was, is when he was talking about chemo, he said, well, let me ask you this, doctor, is this chemo going to save me, or is it just going to, and he didn't even know how to ask. And the doctor said, this is going to give you comfort, and it's going to prolong your life as long as possible, up to a year. So when he said that was that was the point where without saying it, he said, "You're going to die." And so at that moment, I can remember driving home that day. And like you said, I felt like I was watching the world pass by me from like a movie almost. And like you said, my thoughts were all inside of me. Like everything was going on in here. I couldn't really comprehend what was going on anywhere outside of my being. So
Yeah.
it's a similar kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's shock, I guess. It's
Yeah,
shock.
I think that must be what it is.
You
And
know?
everybody kind of does it differently, but you had a child to care for, right? And so I mean, you can't just shut down and lay in your bed and cry for days and days and not get up because you're a young mother and with a young child and you don't have a choice. You've got to just go for her, right?
Yep. She was 2 years and 9 months when that happened.
Wow.
So not even 3, barely speaking sentences.
Right.
I had to explain as best as I could, to her what was happening, but in very little detail,
right.
because, she can't handle a story like that. She's
right.
not even 3.
Oh God.
So yeah, there was another crazy story that happened with her. It was just a couple of weeks after he had passed away, and we were again cuddled up in bed because then that's what I did with her, sleeping in the bed every night. Like we cuddled. And, so we were laying in bed one night and we were about to go to sleep, and she leaned over. We hadn't gone to sleep yet, but she leaned over to me and she grabbed my face, and then she turned it to her. Like she was trying to get my attention. And she was like, "Mommy," she's like, "never give up. Never." She goes, "Never, never, ever give up." And I was like, "What?"
Like I'm about to cry.
This is a baby that can't even hardly speak sentences. She could hardly talk. Wow. And I was like, where did that come from? Like where? And look, I'm telling you, it was weird because she was looking up at the ceiling, kind of like.
They say, that children, I heard that children have a closer connection to, the realms or however you want to call it, but maybe it was him speaking to you through her.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I was like, "Baby," I'm like, did daddy tell you to say that? Like, where's that coming from?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was so weird. It was, yeah.
But I bet that was a message you took to heart for sure.
Oh my gosh. I know. Talk about
the wisdom of the little children, right?
Never give up. Right. Never give up. My baby's little voice telling me that.
Oh, little sweetie pie.
Yeah.
So with your first year or so, I think that's when a lot of the stages of grief happen. And I really feel like that first year of grieving in that process is pivotal, and it's where we do most of our changing. And so for you, for that first year of the grieving process, do you think it was basically like the typical grieving stages? Was there anything that was kind of weird or different, or how did you even know?
I have a different story for my first year because, again, another really weird thing that happened. It was about 2 weeks after, 2 weeks after the funeral. My mom was trying to run some errands or something, and she had asked me to come and help her out. I had Claire with me. She was like, "Meet me at this McDonald's. We're just going to stop and meet up there." So I said, "Okay." So we go to McDonald's, and I'm sitting there, and this is a really nice neighborhood. Like nothing happens in this neighborhood. It's Mayberry. Anyway, so we're sitting there, and I had ordered my food. I'm sitting down, and then all of a sudden I hear some kind of talk happening behind the counter with the workers, and it's getting louder and louder back there. And I'm like, okay, something's happening.
Right.
My mom had taken Claire to the bathroom. And so I was sitting in the booth by myself, and I'm looking, and I'm like, okay, what's happening? What's going on? And then I see a cop car pull up right outside the window where I'm sitting. So it comes tearing around the corner and screeches right there. Yeah. The cop jumps out of the car, and runs inside, runs into the bathroom, the men's bathroom. So my mom is in the women's bathroom, runs into the men's bathroom. He's got his gun like this.
Oh my God.
And then, and then he comes running back out, jumps into the cop car, and then goes tearing off down the street again. And I hear them talking behind the counter, and they were like, oh, the Whitney Bank, the bank across the street just got robbed. And the guy he was running this way.
Oh, so they're searching for him.
So I'm like, it's like slow motion. Again, I'm like looking and I'm eating my fries and I'm just like, like, what is happening? What is happening? And so my mom comes out of the bathroom and she's like, guess who went pee-pee on the potty? You know, like totally oblivious
to what just happened.
To what just happened. And I lost my mind. Like, I told her what happened and I had a panic attack in the McDonald's.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I felt like the world was closing in on me and all of these violent things were happening to my life within a 3-week time period. And I'm just like, I cannot handle what is happening.
So
I don't
that
know
happened 3 weeks after?
It was about 3 weeks after.
Oh, wow.
And so she took me outside and she's holding me by the shoulders and she's like, you know, you need to breathe, like breathe. And I'm just like, okay.
At this point you're thinking, okay, I'm never leaving the house again.
I'm not. I'm like, I'm staying in my house forever.
Right. Not
coming out. And so, I was sitting there and she's holding my shoulders and, I said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Claire was right next to us and she was kind of like playing with, I remember there was these little butterflies that were flying around and she's just kind of like playing in the butterflies. Right. And then out of nowhere, this minivan, you know how when you get your food and then they like forget your French fries and you have to pull up a little bit and you sit there and you wait. There's this family in this minivan and the husband was driving and then the wife and then all the kids in the back. And he had his window down and I don't know what part of the conversation he heard or what, but he was like, excuse me. He's like, ma'am, you have a beautiful daughter. And I was like, what? Like, it just kind of like snapped me out of what was happening.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, he's right. I'm like, he's right.
Yeah.
I have a beautiful daughter.
Right.
I have a beautiful daughter.
Right.
Like, it's going to be okay.
Right.
And again, this is like divine intervention. It just is. It's like, who says that?
Right.
Who says that?
So it kind of snapped your mind into like,
it snapped me out of my panic.
Right.
And I was like, okay, wow. Let's focus on what's important.
Right. Right.
But I went home that day and I immediately bought plane tickets for Claire and I. So this was end of October. Okay. I immediately bought plane tickets for us to go down to the Turks and Caicos Islands for November. I was going to go for Thanksgiving week because we went there like twice a year. That was our family vacation spot. I just needed to get away and be like in peace and quiet and get away from all of this world that was like closing in on me. Right. And so I said, you know, I got to get away. I'm going to go for like 10 days. So Claire and I went down there and probably on like by the third day, I want to say, I was like, I think I need to stay here. Like, I think I need to be here.
Wow.
For like a year. Yeah. I was like, I just need to like sit on the beach and look at this water and not think about anything else.
Anything. Yeah.
And not have any of this world like coming at me. Yeah. I can't.
Triggers everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I found like on the fourth day, I found a little condo for us to stay.
Wow.
And then I signed a lease. I talked to the owner. I signed a lease and I said, okay, this was November. I said, I'm coming back January 1st and I'm going to stay January 1st to January 1st. And we're just going to come down here, just the two of us. I didn't know a single person there, not anybody.
Wow.
But I was like, I feel like this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And again, for like a person that is so logical and practical,
Right.
I was totally flying by intuition and feeling and what I needed.
Right.
What I felt like I needed,
yeah,
despite it not making any sense at all. But I was like, this is what I feel like I need to do.
Right.
And I feel like this is how I'm going to be able to heal, you know?
Wow.
So I did. We packed up 4 giant suitcases. I did an inventory of that little kitchen and I was like, okay, I need a pizza cutter and I need a wine bottle opener. So that's what I'm going to put in my suitcase.
Because I'm walking everywhere, right?
And I'm like, that's all we need. So I packed 4 suitcases with like mostly toys.
Right.
And yeah, I had very little clothes. That was the other part of the story. When we were flying down, and I had all those suitcases, you know, the max limit is like 50 pounds on your suitcase.
Right.
So I didn't have any room for my clothes. So I said, well, I'm just going to wear all of my clothes like at the same time to go down there. And girl, that's what I did. I had on like,
well, it's winter time, right?
It was January.
Layers.
I had on like 25 shirts at the same time. I had on like 15 pairs of underwear.
This is how a widow's mind works, right?
Yeah.
In that
I was getting it done.
Stage, right?
I was getting it done. I'm like, I'm going to make this work. So I looked like the weirdest person, like going up to the counter, like trying to like get our tickets or whatever. I'm like, I had on 25 shirts, 15 pairs of underwear, a bathing suit bottom, I think. I mean, I was wearing.
I'm surprised you didn't get stopped for a strip search and then like take the layers off.
What are they gonna do? They can't do anything about that, you know. I'm just wearing my clothes. Right. That's all.
Oh my gosh.
So I made that work.
Right. Okay. Well, you did what was best for you and your kid. And so, you know, there you go. You took a little mental break and then, so that's awesome. So what do you think? Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. I was just going to say, we were supposed to be down there for a year. We ended up staying for almost 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So best decision I had ever made was to be away and just give myself that time to heal. That's what I needed. I felt like I just needed to be alone with my thoughts and let all of that process, you know?
Right. And I've heard people say, don't make any big decisions the first year. And I'm thinking, well, why not make any big, I mean, I can still think, right? Like I might put on 25 outfits, but like I'm still a grown person. Right. And if you knew what was best for you, okay. So we had a special guest pop up for us, a beautiful little miniature Jen popped in for us and gave us a little surprise, a guest spot. So we had to pause for a moment and catch our breath. And so now we are back. She is gorgeous, by the way.
And, thank you.
So yeah, we were basically just talking about how people are always saying, don't make those big decisions in your first year. And both of us happened to do that, and how it helped both of us so much to process through that grief. So I feel like maybe for some people, if you're not sure, don't make a decision just because you don't know what to do. So you're just going to do something. Don't do that. But if you, like you said, you just knew, and I just knew what I needed. If you know that you need something different, then by all means, don't say, well, I really think I should blah, 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 but it's the first year, so I'm not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So what resources do you think were most helpful to you in those early stages of grief to get you through, obviously moving and doing a change of atmosphere and things like that? But did you seek out counseling, or did you seek out friends or groups or online, or what was it that you think helped you?
So I'm kind of like you with the therapy thing. I did try it once.
Yeah, me too.
I went to see a therapist, and I'm sitting there in front of her, and she's just kind of nodding her head, and she had pictures of her family on her desk. And I'm just like, she can't relate.
Yeah.
She can't relate. She's not getting what I'm saying. I can tell, I can feel it. Doesn't feel right. I'm like, it's just that's not going to work. My really good friend had put me in touch with a local widows group right after, actually, like at the funeral, she was telling me about this group. And so within the first week or two, I had contacted one of the girls in the group, and they were all young widows. They were all like in their 30s and 40s and had young kids. So those girls became my lifeline. I mean, they were everything to me. Like, they were my resource. Mm-hmm. And some of them were like a year out. Some of them were like 2 years. Some of them just a little bit ahead of me, but still it was like, what do I do if this comes up with Claire? What do I do? Can't relate, like that kind of stuff. So I had this awesome group that I really, really leaned on for everything.
Right.
But I also like to read books, and which in that first year, I mean, I probably read 50 books. How much of it sunk into my head? I don't know.
It's probably in there somewhere, right?
But I really tried to absorb like every kind of self-help, grief book, personal development,
right,
how to be happy. I don't know, whatever it was, I was trying to read it. And I would read the words, but I'm not sure how much sunk in. But I do think a little of it did trickle in. Resources and outside things that helped me. For sure, it was that local widows group, and then reading and exercise.
Right.
I did turn to that too. That was a really good time for me to just focus on me. And yeah,
for sure. I think with therapy, it just kind of depends on how we're reacting to some of that grief. I think if you're really having trouble, like fixing your mind on how to want to live, if you're really, really depressed, or you need some like life coping skills, that might be a more appropriate thing for therapists, because that's a more generalized issue that they can handle. But it is hard for people like us to even if you get some sound advice in your mind, you're like, well, what do they know? They haven't lost a spouse, so even
right.
if it's good advice, we don't want to take it, because you're like, you don't know what I'm going through. So, some young person that's like 25, and I'm like, what do you know about life? Like, I don't want to hear
right,
it.
Right.
And so I went to therapy one time too, and the girl, she's like 20, I don't know, she's like 25 or something. And she's like, oh, you just got to take one day at a time, one step at a time, and you just break it down to small parts. And if you need to take an hour at a time, and I'm like, I left there and I thought, I just paid you $90 to tell me what I could have called my mother for and heard her tell me however many times when I was growing up for free. Like, next time I'm calling mom. So after that, I'm like, therapy is not for me. It's for my kids. I'm not totally against therapy. My kids go, and it's really great for them because they're still developing their mind and how to think and how to act and how to, put it all together in life. So
I did. Yes. As far as the kids go, I did have Claire see a bereavement therapist. She was an art therapist.
Oh yeah.
And they did a lot of that. We were doing sessions for quite a while, only because, again, I had no idea what I was supposed to be telling her at what stage. She's so little.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to say the wrong thing, or, how I'm even supposed to approach it. But the art therapy thing was great for her at that age anyway, because
you don't even know, like, cognitively what they comprehend. And so our 6-year-old comes in, like, all the kids go in, they're crying, they're talking to him. The 6-year-old comes in and she hugs him, and he's still kind of out of it by then. So he kind of forgot why they were even in there by then, because he's on so many drugs and stuff. And he's like, hey, I love you too. And so she lays her head on his chest and she's like, I hope you have a good time, Daddy. And he says, good time what? And she said, in heaven with Jesus. I hope you have a good time in heaven. And so she really wasn't even crying, because she was 6 at the time. Daddy's going to heaven. He's about to have a party with God, and so to her, it was just like, she had no comprehension of what it really truly physically meant.
Yes.
He's just telling them, hey, see you soon. Have a good time, you know?
Yes.
And so that's, and I mean, it was like, it was made you cry, but at the same time I thought, so that's how she's, you know, how she's kind of comprehending that.
Exactly.
And so at 2 and 3, you know, that's half the age of 6. So I wouldn't even know how to, you know, how to begin to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's
so
very
I'm
confusing.
sure you would need some professional advice, you know, on how to word things, how to talk things. And art therapy, I'm sure, is probably excellent, you know, way to do that kind of stuff.
It was awesome for her.
So you said you lived there for 3 years. And then at what point after your year 2 or whatever that you're in your grieving process, do you feel like you might have wanted to consider the option of dating or seeing someone or moving forward?
That was a while. It took me a long time. I feel like my whole grieving process was a long time because I felt like I couldn't move forward until we had like the trial stuff resolved with what was going on, because they had caught this person and we had tried to do a plea deal and that was rejected. But then, you know, so we were going to go to trial and then we weren't going to go to trial. And then it was postponed again. And then this witness and then this and then this. And I'm talking years. Like it was like 3 years.
Gosh,
and when they kept postponing it, it would be like every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So then we would get another date. Okay. The next court date is this. And then I'd have to kind of like prep myself for that. Like, okay, I need to be mentally okay with being in that courtroom. It was a whole other level of stress.
Right.
And so,
because you're going to relive a lot of those details and have to process all of that stuff again. Yeah.
All of that stuff, and more.
And so you're probably kind of holding it, like kind of putting it on hold right here, not really able to process it and put it in the back of your mind because you know it's going to have to be pulled to the front at some point.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I'm stuck. I'm just like stuck in this, like in between, waiting for that court date to happen, waiting for a trial to happen. And I guess I was trying to tell myself at some point, I have to just have my life here. That is going to happen.
Right.
It might be 7-10 years. I don't know. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But I got to do something. I have to separate those two things. And so I did. After it was a few years, I was like, well, you know, maybe I'll start to consider it, think about dating. I don't know if I'm even ready. You know, I'm just kind of, again, like that in between kind of, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. It happens so gradually. Yeah.
So I was out with some friends one night, and then my friend knew a friend. It was that kind of thing, set us up, introduced us while we were out. I did kind of go on a few dates with one guy, but I knew that he wasn't the right one for me. It was just kind of like, I was trying to make him fit into our lives. And I was like, I know that this is wrong. In the back of my mind, I'm like, I know that this is not the right guy. So like, what am I doing? Right. And that continued for a few months. And then there was another guy, like one first date, you know, like that's about it. There was another guy, one first date, you know, like.
Yeah, I had too many of those I didn't want to talk about. Yep. But it's kind of nice when you know for sure, because you don't waste any more time.
Right. Like, no, that was not the one for me. That was not the one. And so that did happen several times. And then, it was when I met Doug. So Doug came into the picture, in October of 2015. And we talk about timing a lot and the timing of things. So this is another crazy thing. We had been going back and forth with the plea deal and the trial and everything for 4 years. Wow. 4 years. And finally, it was the same week that I started talking to Doug, literally that same week. Wow. I think the first time we messaged was on Monday. And then Wednesday, they took the plea deal. Wow. Within 24 hours. within 24 hours, he was before a judge and he was sentenced. And that was out of my life.
Wow. That's awesome. It's
and
awesome that it was just kind of taken care of and just,
all within the same week of me starting to talk to Doug.
Wow.
And so I was like, this door closed and literally this one was like cracked open right here.
Wow.
Like it was just like the timing was perfect. But the way that I actually met Doug was we had met back in 1992 was the first time that we met. So we were teenagers. We were 15 and 16. I was in New Orleans. He was living in Michigan. He's from Ann Arbor. And so we were both part of our church youth group, youth club things. And they had a giant youth conference in New Orleans in August of 1992. So and his church group, the first night, it was a 4-day conference. The first night we had a big concert in the Superdome, and his group was walking down this aisle and my group walked down this aisle. We met in the middle at this concert. And so we started talking to them, like my little friends. And then we hung out like the next 4 days. It was all totally innocent, church fun, teenage kids just having a great time. So he gets on the plane on Monday to fly back to Michigan, and he wrote me a letter, and he said he wrote it on the plane while he was flying back. And it was like scribble scratch, like front and back, 5 pages of a letter from a 16-year-old boy.
Wow.
So he sends me this letter, and I remember getting the letter when I was 15. And I was like, this boy is going off to college. I'm never going to see him again. He's in Michigan. He's on the other side of the world. I'm like, I don't have a car. This was 1992.
Right. There's no internet, smartphones.
There's no internet.
No FaceTime.
There's no cell phones. Right. Like making a phone call was like $2 a minute,
Right.
I'm like, I don't have a job. So I said, I am never going to see this guy again. Right. I didn't, and I feel terrible for it, but I never did write back to him. I didn't even write back because I was like, I'm not even going to worry about it,
Right.
But looking back, I feel terrible. Anyway, fast forward 24 years or whatever it was, 24 years. Claire and I had moved in with my parents. After moving from Turks and Caicos, we moved in with my parents. I had sold my house because I didn't want to be in that house.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved in with my parents, and I had boxes and boxes of stuff. I had storage units. And my mom had been going through some of my stuff, like bills. It was a box of old bills from my house. And she came across this letter, and the letter was folded up tiny, and it said Jennifer. It had a little heart over the I. And she was like, it didn't look like it went with the AT&T bills. So she's like, she put it on my dresser. And so a couple of weeks later, I'm cleaning up and I'm dusting or whatever, and I see this letter. And so I pick up the letter, and I sat down on the bed, and I opened it up, and I read it, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, somebody loves me. Like, that's what I said. Because he signed it, Love, Doug. And so I said, oh my God, I remember this. I remember this weekend. I hadn't read that letter in like 24 years.
Wow.
But I had kept it. I kept it in a box.
That's amazing.
In a box of like, I had high school stuff. My house was in Katrina. I had 5 feet of water in Katrina. That letter was up in the attic in a box. It survived that.
Wow.
It survived me moving like 20 times. So I had this letter, and I was like, okay, I got to get in touch with him. He had signed, thank God he had signed his last name. He put Doug Zwinck. He put, this is where I'm going to college. This is where I'm going to go. This is where I live. This is my address. This is my mom's name. Like, he put all these things, like how to find him. Right.
Oh my God.
So I looked him up on Facebook, and then I messaged him, and I just said something like I didn't know if he was married or not. Not that it mattered. I was just like, I found this letter. It's 25 years old. It's really cool. It survived Katrina. Just thought you might like to know what your 16-year-old self was thinking, Wow. And so he messaged me right away. Like, he sent a message back, and he was like, I absolutely remember you, Jen. And I was like, oh my God, he remembered me. Well, so then we start messaging, and then we start talking. And he's living in Chicago at that time. So he was like, maybe we should, this was after talking for a few weeks, maybe we should re-meet. Maybe, you come up here. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I had to tell my parents because I needed somebody to babysit Claire. I literally bought a plane ticket and I flew up on a Saturday afternoon. And then my plane ticket was for Sunday morning to fly back because I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. I'm going on a date.
Right.
It's in Chicago. I'm like, Mom, Dad, can you please watch Claire while I go on a date in Chicago?
Oh, by the way, in Chicago. Yeah. Flying back tomorrow. No worries.
Oh God. So I did that. It flew up there.
Oh my gosh.
We hit it off right away and we continued seeing each other. And it was from there on out, it was like, okay, 10 months later, we were engaged.
Wow.
And 10 months later, we got married. And then 10 months later, we had Penelope, who was in this room just a few minutes ago.
Right. Our special guest.
It was pretty quick.
Gosh, yeah. But like, we've been, first of all, we've been married before. We've had children. We're grown people. It's not like we don't know what we're getting into, so it's not like we're teenagers or whatever. And secondly, we felt some of the greatest pain in our lives. And we've had enough sadness and we've had enough grief. It's time for some happiness. And if we want to just go ahead and jump into that and feel it, then people should just let us do it.
I know. I mean,
mine was quick too. So, everybody was like, no, you should wait. Wait for what? I know. Somebody, like when you've lost somebody, you already know so acutely that our days are numbered. We don't know how many days. We already know our spouse has no more days left. We don't know how many more days we have. So I don't want to waste any more.
I know.
So people don't feel that with the same reality as we do.
I know. So, I mean, and for me too, I had put my life on hold. Because of all the trial stuff that was happening, it was like 4 years. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here waiting. I'm just waiting. What am I waiting for?
You're punishing yourself because of the actions of someone else that they've already punished you enough. And so you only decided not to let them continue to hold your emotions hostage and hold your life hostage over that.
And Doug is divorced. They did not have children. So I think that made things a lot easier as far as him having flexibility. He was able to move down to Louisiana and, that was just kind of a clean cut kind of thing. I think that can complicate things a lot with that situation, but it all worked out. It all worked out really well for us.
Yeah. Because I think for you guys, it was definitely meant to be. I mean, that letter proves it all, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a question for you. Since you are now remarried, do you still consider yourself a widow?
Okay. I do. And to me, having the word widow is like, it's like part of your resume. I would say if you can kind of compare it to that, like I can say I'm an LSU graduate. I went to LSU. I'm an LSU alumni. I was a widow. I'm a widow alumni. I don't know what you want to call it, but that's kind of how I kind of equate the two. It's like, that is always going to be a part of me. No matter what happens, like that is something that is going to be with me in my experience forever. So yeah, that's how I think of it. I still call myself a widow. I am a remarried widow, but that's still a widow,
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And it's funny, my sister made the same comment about, I went to UGA. So she said, and she did too. She said, well, you're a Georgia Bulldog, right? And I said, well, yeah, right. Once a dog, always a dog. That's one of our mottos, right? And she says, well, you're a Georgia Bulldog, but you don't go to school there anymore. But when you walked out, after graduation, you didn't say, well, I'm not a Bulldog anymore. So maybe people can relate to that, like a more concrete example. But I totally agree. And I remember you saying you were surprised because you don't have the same kind of, like, your podcast is more of a one directional. And so you're not seeing reactions as much or reading reactions as much from people. And so on YouTube, I had comments, I have a lot of comments about, well, you're not a widow, you're remarried. You can't call yourself that anymore. I'm thinking, okay, well, I still have, you know,
True.
I still have the experience. I mean, I'm still grieving, right? Like you don't get remarried and suddenly your grief stops. Your kid's dad did not come back to life. You know, you still have those experiences and you can still help people.
Exactly.
And share those experiences with other people and maybe give them an idea that life does still go on and you still can have life after loss. You can have love after loss. You can have, you know, any way you decide to put your life forward, you can still have a life for yourself, but that doesn't take away the loss.
No.
So I agree. I totally agree.
Exactly.
So, okay. So let's talk about Widowed 180 and tell us about what it is and how it came about.
So Widow 180 was something that I had thought of a lot for a long time before it actually happened because I was too chicken to make it happen. But I really wanted to do a podcast. I was telling you, like, I kind of got into podcasts kind of late in the game, and it was, I don't remember, 2019 or so. And I discovered podcasts. And then I thought right away, I was like, I want to do a podcast. And I got with my widow girls and I said, we should do a podcast. And everybody's like, yes, let's do a podcast. And then it was like 2 months went by. I'm like, girls, let's do the podcast. And they're like, okay. And then it's like, like life, you know, and trying to get people together and trying to do it. And it was so on my heart, like heavy on my heart. And I was like, I need to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I was like, that's it. I'm doing it myself. So I wanted to put together a show that was stories and other widows. I wanted to interview other widows who were a few steps ahead. People who had been through the loss, and then what did they do to get through it? How did they cope? Like, I just remember being in those first few months where I'm like, when does this get better? When does this get better?
Right.
I just need to know that it gets better. I mean, I don't believe that I'm ever going to feel better. So, you know, what do? We seek evidence. We go look for it. We look for the examples. And so that's what I wanted to put out there. I wanted to put out stories of hope and inspiration and these amazing women across the world that are, you know, they've turned their life around. They've been through it. They did it. This is what they did to get through it. And look at this amazing stuff that they are doing with their lives, you know, like they are starting businesses and becoming life coaches, and they are, you know, building houses and starting companies and getting married again. I mean, all of it, all of the positive of what is possible for your life and for your future. Because I couldn't see that. I could not see getting out of where I was feeling and how I was feeling. So I decided to do a show like that. And so I kind of, and I started July of 2020.
So it's been just over a year then.
A little over a year. I've done 72 episodes.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Including yours that just came out today.
Yes. So those people, yes, that's right. So our WID fam, go over there and check it out and see. Yeah.
Yep. Episode 72. So we have one happy
widow.
I
wish I'd have waited one more year because that would have been my birth year.
It has been incredible. It has been so enlightening and opened up so many doors for me just to meet all of these incredible people, right, and to share these stories, and then to see the impact that it's making, because it's crazy. Like I have messages from women in Africa. I have messages all across the world.
Wow.
People in India, you know, I mean, all over the place. It's amazing how far of a reach it goes. It's really incredible.
Yeah, because you know what? I mean, this is, you know, loss of a spouse and grief and all those things is a human condition. It's not a cultural thing. It's not a political thing. It's not a race thing. It's not a country thing. It's a world thing. You know, it's a human thing. So every woman, every person in the world can feel a loss like this and need to connect with someone else that can tell them that there's hope out there, that it can get better. And when, like we were talking about with therapy, you talk to a therapist who hasn't experienced loss and they're like, it's going to get better. You're like, how do you know? How do you know? When? Tell me when exactly. But when you hear it from a person who's been through it, that, their story has merit to you. You can believe that because they've done it. And it makes a big difference.
I also realized too, that not everybody had what I had. Looking back, I know how lucky I was for my friend to put me in touch with that group.
Right.
Because I wouldn't be where I am today without that group. And there are so many people that I get messages from that say they're alone. They're alone and they don't have anybody to talk to about this stuff.
That's right.
And that is what gets to me the most, is that like, you're going through this alone and you shouldn't be going through this alone.
And you might have tons of friends and family and caring coworkers and all that stuff, but they don't know how. They don't know how to help you, and it's so awkward. So they end up saying stupid stuff, that makes us get mad at them because they're really just trying, but they don't know what to say. So they just say something and it ends up coming out dumb. And we all complain to each other about the dumb things that people say to us when we're grieving, but it's really because they don't know. I put myself back, I can rewind 5 years and think, if my friend or coworker had become widowed and I wasn't, how would I help her? I would not know what to say or do. I would feel inadequate and I probably would distance myself a little because I'm not sure what to do. And that's
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, we end up feeling left alone because they just don't
I feel like I would step back from that, and not, because I wouldn't know what to say. And that's how so many people react. That's pretty normal.
And we can just step into each other and talk and joke about stuff and talk about it comfortably because we've been through it. But I'm thinking I really want to be able to educate others so that they can feel the same level of comfort to ask us about our experiences, ask us about our late spouse, and not feel weird about it or think that they're going to remind us that they died as if we might forget.
Yeah.
But I think what you're doing is awesome. Yeah. But I think the idea, of bringing other women in to talk to them so that they're not just hearing your story, they're hearing all these different stories of all these women from different places and different backgrounds and different experiences. But the one common thread is that they've all not come through, because we never come through and finish, but like they've all been through that hard point and are on the way to, yes, it does get better and it can get better and you can live a life. And this is what I've done. And this is what I've done. And so those success stories can give people who are early in that stage and not knowing, what do I do now? Give them hope that, wow, if these ladies can do it, then so can I.
That's exactly what I call it. Widow success stories.
Right.
Yeah. So that is Widow 180.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, and so I remember talking to my husband, JP. He's also widowed, by the way. But when I started my YouTube channel, he was my biggest supporter, and he'd watch those videos. And in the beginning, it was a lot of me sharing my story about Dewey's death and those things. And I would cry, and he'd watch it, and he would cry. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, gosh, every video he's watching, he's sitting there watching me talk about some other man. I wonder if that bothers him. But in your situation, how did you guys have that talk, or did you ever think anything like that?
Multiple times we had the talk. Even though he told me every time, I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. It's great, because he sees how much it lights me up.
Right.
Like, I get off a phone call, I get off an interview, and I come out there and I'm like, you would not believe what this woman is doing. Yeah. Like, it's incredible. Listen, she did this and this and this. And like, he's hearing all of these stories too. Right. And so he sees me light up about it and get fired up about it. And so he likes to see me happy.
What I wanted to ask is, I don't know if you've even thought about this, but what is your goal for Widow 180? Like, where do you see it going in the future? Is it just, do you see a bigger picture there, or do you just...
Such a bigger picture. I do. Well, we'll talk about my course that I just came out with.
Okay.
So this is the first Widow 180 course. But I have this bigger picture. Of course, it's always going to be the podcast because I love doing it. I love that. Yeah. I love our Facebook group. Like we've got a good group of ladies in there, and it's all about uplifting and positivity. And, it's not always my story is worse than your story.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted Widow 180 to be about is, just turning your life around and the transformation that happens. And then bringing your other widow friends along with you. Like, we're all going to make it. We're all going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And we can help each other along the way. So I have the course, and then I have the Facebook group. I don't know, maybe, I've been thinking about like a membership kind of group, or some group coaching that we can start getting into, mm-hmm. whether or not that's about dating or whether or not it's about something else.
Yeah.
But I feel like there is a need for that.
I do too.
All around,
for sure. For sure.
That's not a replacement for therapy. And I don't want to say that at all. Right. But my group of girls and that support that I had was, for me was better than therapy. Yeah. Because those were all people that could relate. And so that's what I want to kind of get together is a community, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. When I talked to JP about it, and I said, I don't know, my niche is just so small. And he's like, widow people? He said, how many people die in a day? Every time somebody dies, if they were married, they leave behind a widow or a widower. He said, that's a lot of people, babe. And I thought, well, yeah, I mean, that's true. And, you usually think of widow people as being older people. And they're, my core group is, in the older 50, 60 plus. But these days, I mean, I've got women on my Facebook group that are in their 80s. They know how to use technology. They know how to use Facebook. They know, they can watch YouTube. You know what I mean? It might not be an Instagram thing. I don't know. I'm too old for Instagram, but like that, that age is not a barrier for technology anymore because people of all ages know how to use Facebook. They know how to watch a video on YouTube. I'm telling you, they're listening to podcasts. So it's not limited anymore.
Yes.
So, okay. So tell us about, I'm so excited to hear about your course. So tell us about this course that you've got and give me all the deets and we can tell people about it.
So the course actually kind of happened because Doug and I did an interview for Widow 180. And this was back episode 32. And it was right around Valentine's Day. So I was like, I said, babe, let's sit down. I'm going to do an interview. It's going to be all about dating a widow, a guy's perspective. I just want to hear what you have to say. And this is like conversations that I was asking him questions we had never talked about before. Right. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to get all the scoop. What he was thinking.
Catch him by surprise. Put him on the spot. Right.
So we did this interview. It was so fun. And I learned a lot. That was episode 32. Anyway, after this episode, we got messages and messages and messages, and not just from widows. It was from people that were dating widows.
Yes.
And they were trying to ask Doug questions like, what do I do when this comes up? And what do I do when this comes up? And like, it's like, nobody's really educated on how to handle this,
I can't tell you how many people message me privately or email me and say, hey, I'm dating a widow or a widower and they're doing this. What does that mean? Like we could speak their language, right?
And then they're like, I'm feeling this. Where do I put that feeling? I don't know what to, I don't know how I'm supposed to react. So many things, right?
Yeah.
So many questions.
Yes.
From every angle and emotion. So we were like, okay, we were messaging people. And then I was like, there's not really a whole lot of support in this area. There's not. And I was trying to focus it too on how I was feeling when I was trying to get back into dating again. What was stopping me? Oh my God, the stupid thoughts that I was thinking and telling myself, and these objections to it. Like, aren't I too old for this? And girl, I was like 37, I'm like, I'm still going to live another 35 years, hopefully, or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to spend half my life. But I was telling myself, I'm like, nope, I'm too old for this. I don't have time. There's, where am I even going to find a guy? It's all these things that pop up and that you stop yourself, and you stop yourself because you're protecting yourself.
Right.
Because you have put these walls up around yourself because you've been hurt so bad. And so I was like, I need to talk to people about this. And I need to give them some guidance that's like, this is how you can overcome the negative self-talk and the things that we tell ourselves.
Right.
And if this little thought of having love in your life again is starting to creep back in, which it does, like it'll just kind of pop up like, you're having your life. It's great. It's good. It's fulfilling. You're content. You're good. But then you're like, man, wouldn't it be nice if I could share this with somebody?
That's right. Yeah.
It could be the most gorgeous hike you've ever been on. You're at the top of the mountain. It's beautiful. You're looking out at the beautiful, whatever, waterfall. Wouldn't it be nice to share this with somebody?
Right.
And that's kind of how it was starting for me too. And so I had this little tug on my heart, and then it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe not. And then you go with the back and forth, and then all the negative self-talk, and then months go by again. And then you're like, okay, it's been however many years or whatever. And you're like, what am I doing?
Yes. It's time, right?
Scared. I am scared. I'm scared, and I am letting fear direct my decisions. And so this is what the program is about. It's called Dating After Loss, a 4-step WISH program. And there's a story behind WISH, but a 4-step WISH program for widows and widowers who want to find love again after loss. So
awesome. I know a ton of people that are watching the YouTube, and a ton of my subscribers and a ton of my Facebook group people are going to be interested in this course for sure. Because as soon as I said I was going to do a series on dating, they're like, we've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for you to talk about this. And so I know they're going to be interested.
Yeah. It's a thing. And like I said, there's not much support. The whole dating thing is just a lonely journey anyway. It has to be. Who else is going to do it for you?
Right.
You have to go out and do the work.
Mm-hmm. And it is work. I swear, I tell people it was like a part-time job, swiping and reading and looking to descriptions. And oh gosh. Yeah. It was not all fun and games, And then
when you start to think about that enough is to stop you too. Cause it's like, God, do I want to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People are like, if God wants me to have a husband, he'll send one to my front door. Yeah. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but I don't know what the percentage of that. I mean, talk to 100 people. How many times did that happen? I don't know.
Oh no.
How bad do you want it? So,
right. So the whole program, it takes you from A to Z. It's a roadmap. It goes over everything. It's a lot of mindset work, but girl, it's a lot of step-by-step practical stuff too. I mean, there's a lot that gets into like the online dating stuff and like, what the hell do I say in a profile? I don't know.
Right.
And in the course that I have, it has just templates where you can just plug in your information and you're all set and you go and it's taken care of.
Nice.
So like,
I wish I had this course when I was dating. So, I mean, I got lucky, just to let you know guys, online, I found the last good one. So I don't know if there's any left because I searched and searched. I finally found one, but I took it. So literally, I wish I had this course. I would have so signed up for it when I was dating. So, but since I can't use it, I'm gonna let you guys use it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So tell the viewers where they can find your course, where they can sign up, and do we have any specials for them?
Yes. So you can go to www.widow180.com/courses.
Okay.
And
I'll put it in the link below too, so they can go look in the description and they can find it there too. Okay.
So that's where you can sign up for the course. And it's a self-paced course. So it's like you take it as you want to take it. If you sat down and did it in a weekend, it would take about 4 hours to do. We have exercises, there's checklists, there's templates, there's all kinds of things in there. Nice. It's very comprehensive, everything that you need, but there's a coupon code for all of your viewers.
Okay.
And if they put in the word happy, then they'll get 10% off.
Nice.
So that's widow180.com/courses. And then also I wanted to tell everybody that we are doing a little 3-day mini challenge, and it's called the Find Love Again Challenge. We are starting this very soon. It's starting Tuesday, October 5th. So it's going to be 3 days, and we are going to go over some of the mindset stuff, like the roadblocks that are stopping you. Let's take a look at, what do you even want in a relationship? Right. Because let's face it, things have changed. You've changed. You know, it's not like when you were dating when you were 20, and maybe you haven't dated in 20 years. So let's take a look at what you even want now, if you haven't even thought about that.
Right.
So these are all parts of our challenge, and that's coming up Tuesday, October 5th. And you can sign up for that at www.widow180.com/challenge for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put that in there too. Okay. So if you missed all that stuff, check it out in the description, and we'll have links there. I'll have the coupon code for you guys for the 10% off. And so go on, head on over there, and anybody who's considering it, even if you think you might use it later, you know, just look at it. It might help you decide if you're even ready or not. You know, you might look at it and say, you know what, I'm just not ready to do all this stuff yet, but when I am, and I'll come back and I'll refresh it. And so it might just be for people who are on the fence on whether they're ready or not.
I know. And I just had that question from a listener just yesterday. And she messaged me on the side, and she was like, is this something that we can just sit in on, even if we're not ready, or we may never be ready? And I wrote back to her, and I was like, absolutely. Right. Like this information and this content is here for you. You take it, you have it, you do whatever with it. If you want to hold on to it, 6 months, you know, maybe you think you might be ready in 6 months. We'll come back to it. It's there. It's, you know, absolutely. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, I think it's a wonderful resource, and to date, not that I'm not looking anymore, but I have not heard of anything like that. Like I said, when I was, you know, in the dating scene or whatever. So I think it's definitely needed. You know, it's definitely something out there that will be a help to a lot of people. So we'll tell everybody about it. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for the week. But Jen, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to do this new change, you know, for the new interview thing. I think it's really cool that we did this. And, and I appreciate you sharing your stories with us. And I look forward to hearing back. I want to hear back some success stories. Like, I can't wait till the course has been out for a while, and there's people that are coming back saying, you know, well, sending you wedding pictures or whatever.
Yes. Oh my God. That would be so great.
That would really be awesome. So we're going to have to keep in touch with everybody for that. So,
yes.
All right. So check out the podcast and check out the course, and make sure you subscribe, hit that subscribe button below so you won't miss anything else on One Happy Widow. And we will see you guys on the next video. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Leo, so much. Thank you.